welcome to the 2022 Controlling the HIV Epidemic Summit. My name is Dr. Jose Zuniga, and I serve as President and CEO of the International Association of Providers of AIDS Care, or IAPAC. We are convening this year's summit just as we are regaining momentum against HIV and AIDS at urban, national, regional, and global levels. And since we convened the first such summit in 2012, we have made great strides in the science of HIV, not to mention the various innovations implemented both in the natural course of our evolving response, but also to mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yet, as UNAIDS warned us in this past year's global report, we are in danger. For example, without urgent action, UNAIDS projects 1.2 million new HIV infections globally on the very year, 2025, that UN member states set a goal of less than 370,000. From a purely biomedical perspective, these new infections could be averted if we scaled up both antiretroviral therapy, or ART, and its adjunct, pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP. In fact, we said as much at the Controlling the HIV Epidemic Summit a decade ago, where by consensus we declared to control the HIV epidemic in any country of the world, ART and PrEP must be accessible to all people, not just the privileged few. According to UNAIDS, 75% of all people living with HIV globally are accessing ART. But what about the other 25%? And while PrEP scale-up is occurring, it is highly concentrated in a small number of countries, though inequitably so, even in these countries. It is therefore no surprise the total number of people using PrEP globally hovers at about 28% of the targeted 3 million people accessing PrEP, which represents only 8% of the UNAIDS 2025 PrEP access target. Additionally, we also agreed at the 2012 Controlling the HIV Epidemic Summit that so long as HIV-related stigma remains an obstacle for people to seek HIV testing and access prevention and treatment services, even the best intentions can only achieve limited results. In many countries, new HIV infections are highly concentrated among key populations, socially marginalized, and victims to inequality of opportunity, including in relation to health. Too many of these individuals must contend with dual or multiple stigmas that affect people who use substances, live with mental health conditions, are formerly incarcerated, or engage in sex work. Moreover, gender identity, race, sexual orientation, housing or the lack thereof, and socioeconomic status are also concerns for stigma that increase vulnerability to HIV. These challenges may seem intractable. To be fair, it is also too easy to be pessimistic given that, at least in relation to the series of summits we have hosted since 2012, these challenges also remain persistent ones. But I side with Winston Churchill in believing that the pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, the optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. Framed within the context of the tools we have at our disposal, we must confront our challenges by quickening the pace of our response. With no vaccine or cure available in short order, though we should continue to invest in their discovery, there is only one viable alternative: speed up efforts to achieve HIV epidemic control across all populations and age bands, including by eliminating structural and other barriers, while refining and expanding our approaches, notably the rapid uptake and scale-up of innovations. And on that latter point, we are gathered for the 2022 Controlling the HIV Epidemic Summit to hear from a broad range of speakers, each proposing or expanding upon concepts, ideas, and innovations aimed at facilitating and sustaining HIV epidemic control. Our speakers come from academia, community-based organizations, clinics and hospitals, and advocacy groups. Many of the talks fall within 4 thematic sections, including HIV metrics, service delivery, screening and testing, and biomedical prevention. An additional thematic session will cover key populations within the context of aging, harm reduction, and antiretroviral therapy adherence. Finally, we have devoted a thematic session to the issues of HIV stigma and health equity, both of which must be addressed if we are to create an enabling environment for HIV epidemic control. Some of the talks we are featuring at this year's summit are novel. Others elaborate via professional views on established concepts, often not yet brought to scale. Either way, I thank our speakers for putting their concepts, ideas, and innovations forward for our consideration. Finally, I thank each of you for joining us at the 2022 Controlling the HIV Epidemic Summit and for your commitment to shattering the status quo that contributed to an estimated 650,000 AIDS-related deaths this year alone.